shake, dance, slurp, burp, break, dance, swerve, burp, shake, dance, slurp, burp, break, dance, burp, swerve, shake, dance, slurp, burp, break, dance, swerve, earthquake.
Yeah, I'm trying to time it a little bit better so folks that are watching get the end of the intro music. Folks that are listening on the traditional pod channels, you guys just get the normal fade out because I can set all that up in Adobe Audition. Adjusts bifocals. Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you all. Nice, relaxing Thursday. Just a couple of games tonight. Tuesday was... So I far prefer just a couple of games. I think we've gone over this on the pod before. I don't know why I'm getting back into this thing. I like when there's like 7 or 8 games every day. We had that in the bubble. The only redeeming quality to the end of that god-awful year of 2020 was the fact that we had games running from the afternoon all the way through the end of the night, and there were only like 7 or 8 of them because they only had 2 courts to play on. That was sweet. Yeah, now you jam them all in. We had so many games yesterday in this tiny little pocket. There were 2 games on what you'd call sort of like traditional West Coast time, and one of them was in the mountains. Denver just started late. They were kind enough to start late. Everybody else, for us at least here on the West Coast, was 5:30 or earlier. There were 12 games that started at either 4, 4:30, 5, or 5:30, and only one of those was 5:30. There were 11 games that started at 4, 4:30, or 5. It's nuts trying to keep up with all that crap. Sheesh. What do we got on the docket today? Well, the huge, as the kids say these days. I think the kids still say that. The huge. We got a giant Wednesday to recap. All those games I was just talking about. A few things that popped up in there. That's always fun when you get some new names in the mix. It's exciting. It's the ebb and flow of the fantasy season. Sometimes you get some new names that emerge. Then you go a week or two where it's just like tracking the usual stuff, trying to figure out if somebody's moving up, moving down. And then every once in a while, you get those few days where things shift in sort of a beefier context. And we had a little bit of that last night. We'll preview the short 2-game Thursday. We'll do a few questions from the chat room, and then we'll put a pin in it. There was someone over in our Discord. He said he didn't want credit for it, but I'm going to give anonymous credit to one of our Discord folks, which, by the way, you guys can join that. The link in the show description is the right one. I actually can confirm that this time. He said he didn't want credit for it, so I won't address anything by name, but this Discord user came up with what I thought was a really, really fun idea for a show. And I'm not going to have time to do it today or tomorrow, probably not over the weekend, although I'd like to do a show over the weekend. We'll see if that takes shape. So we're looking at some point next week, but it's a trade show that effectively is like, let's make a deal. So I would come on a program, I would sit in front of you like I do today, and say, all right, everybody in the chat room, and this would be more fun for live viewers, but I think folks after the fact would find it amusing as well. All right, live viewers, I am selling player X. So, let's say, who's a sell high guy right now? I'm selling Tyrese Maxey. A little bit of a sell high. Off to a hell of a start. 0.7 blocks per game. That's right. Tyrese is going to get you a block a game. I'm selling Tyrese Maxey. So then what I would need from everybody else in the chat room, watching, whatever, you guys would then offer players to me in return. So you'd say, oh, I'd give you De'Aaron Fox, or I'd give you JJJ, or I'd give you LeBron, or whatever it is, whatever names you'd throw into the chat room. And the show would basically be me saying, I'm taking that deal, or I'm not taking that deal, and explaining why. It's sort of a fun way to gauge player valuations. It would focus on the main guy that I'm selling, but also it would sort of compare it to whatever players came up in the main context. I think that show could be really a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll get a chance to try that out next week. We'll try to keep the buys and the sells going next week. That's another fun thing that we've been able to add to the mix. But let's go ahead and dive on in. Welcome to the show again, everybody. It's Fantasy NBA Today. It's Thursday morning. I am your host, Dan Bespris. You can find me on social at Dan Bespris, DanBesbris. Yesterday was a big one. But the thing about it is, once you get into these gigantic cards and results, you have to figure out how to isolate the stuff that's actually fantasy relevant, because there's so many names that did things in a given night. I don't know how many players played yesterday, about 300 or so. And so much of it doesn't change. So the key for us here, keeping this podcast under 2 hours, is to isolate the stuff that mattered. So let's start going through some of the teams. We'll just plow our way ahead and take a break for some water in the middle, but that's where we're at. Washington, a rare victory for the sometimes hapless Wizards. They got it over the also sort of hapless Hornets. For Washington, it's their second win of the year. They are now tied, believe it or not, with those Hornets we were just talking about at 2-5 through their first 7 ball games. Not that that's what matters for fantasy folks. What matters for fantasy folks is that Kyle Kuzma is rumbling so far. He is a sell high inside the top 40, shooting 51% from the field and 83% at the free throw line. Those numbers would both basically be career highs for him. That's coming down. Steals probably come up a little bit, but probably not enough to counterbalance the other stuff. He's getting the 20 shots that we hoped. I think you could probably move Kuzma. What's he ranked now? 40, I said, 39. You could probably get someone inside the top 60, 65 range, and I think you probably do that. The bad news for all of this is, well, you guys know I love DeLon Wright, but he hasn't been good enough consistently enough. This big ball game yesterday just pushed him up to number 123 in 9-cat. So, no, I'm not adding DeLon Wright. He did, however, vastly outplay the starter, Tyus Jones, who played only 19 minutes in yesterday's ball game. And Jordan Poole got dramatically outplayed by Bilal. And so that's a lineup that just saw more activity. The guys that were on the court yesterday was those two dudes, plus Kuzma, Landry Shamet, Danilo Gallinari played some extra minutes off the bench. He's shown himself to be kind of a fun, rapid-fire scorer type. But all of that meant that we got another ball game where Tyus Jones didn't play normal minutes, Jordan Poole didn't play normal minutes, Denny Avdia sort of got near normal minutes, but not quite. And I get it. I mean, the Wizards got to go to the hot hands there, but also it continues to ruin fantasy days because Tyus Jones is averaging just 25.5 minutes per ball game. Jordan Poole is averaging just 26.5 minutes per game, almost 27. These guys are not inside the top 130 right now. That's not true. Tyus Jones is 129. One has to believe that those minutes will come up. So does it make it a buy low on both of those guys? I think it's more of a buy low on Tyus Jones because so far he's done kind of what we expected in the minutes he's gotten. He just needs the minutes to be more like 31, 32 than 25 and change. You're adding another 20 to 30% of what he's doing right now, and he'll be totally fine. With Jordan Poole, you add another 20 or 30%. Yeah, it obviously helps a little bit, but steals and blocks probably coming down. Field goal percent, constant, maybe. Free throw percent probably goes up for him, but they're just the path to top 40 for Jordan Poole, which is where he was getting drafted, is fraught with peril right now. I don't think he gets there. Really nothing on the Charlotte side. Brandon Miller filling in the starting lineup for Terry Rozier, and a whole lot of nothing. Mark Williams only played 18.5 minutes. He had fouls early, didn't have as many of them late, but they just sort of went to different looks. PJ Washington, Nick Richards took care of more minutes at the 5. Blah, blah, blah. Move along. Boston, nothing. That's a team we can just skip right over unless somebody's out, which they were not. Sixers, we're just sort of casually keeping track of a few things, like Nick Batum, once again, a +7, team best, ± for Nick Batum. By the way, it's not victory lap time, but the Sixers do have the second best record in the NBA right now. And I feel like I was the only person who was on them as a team getting good, which is weird. Everybody was just like, yeah, I know Harden's been a mess, but they can't possibly be better without him. And There's a funny tweet. I think it was Bill Simmons, who I've mostly tuned out over the last couple of years, but he sent a tweet out yesterday that was like, man, it was more fun playing the Sixers when they had one guy on their team who didn't want to break a sweat. Yeah, a lot of teams are going to feel that way. Fantasy-wise, you're holding Kelly Oubre until we figure out what the hell he is after this trade. In the starting lineup, I think he's less fun because, Tyrese Maxey took 27 shots, Embiid took 20, and then Oubre only 11. When he's coming off the bench, he was getting more shots per minute. But you guys all want me to talk about DeAnthony Melton. He got 29 minutes in yesterday's ball game, and he shot 1 for 9. The shot is just way off right now, and he's maybe the hardest hold in all of fantasy sports. But it reminds me a lot of Rob Covington like 7 years ago. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I tell this story once, I think, per fantasy season. Rob Covington, back when he had some juice in his legs, and he's back on the Sixers again. I think it was it? I think it was on when he was in Minnesota. I think it was in Minnesota. So it was like 5 or 6 years ago. And there's no way for me to figure out exactly when it was because his numbers for the entire season were very normal. But if you have time, and I don't because I'm in the middle of a live show right now, but if you have time to go back and try to figure out what season it was for Rob Covington, where he started the year shooting something ungodly. It was, I think he shot like 19% over the first couple of weeks. I can't remember what year it was. It was somewhere in there. I thought it was Minnesota. Maybe it wasn't. And I dropped him. And it's the worst drop I've ever made in fantasy sports because he was still playing his normal minutes, but nothing was going in. But he was getting his, 1.5 steals and 1 block and all that sort of typical Rocco stuff. But I had a team where like 3 guys got hurt, and I had high hopes for most of those injured guys to come back and be difference makers. And I was like, well, I don't really know what Rob Covington's going to do when he gets back. I thought he was going to be decent. Came roaring back, ended up as like a top 30 fantasy player after that. Now, that's not to say that DeAnthony Melton's going to be a top 30 player. That's not what I'm trying to claim here. What I am claiming, though, is that dude is shooting under 30% right now. And I get it. He's not a good shooter to begin with, but 29% for the year is probably not happening. And as the shot comes around, you probably see more minutes come around as well. So then the shots go up, the minutes go up, the threes go up, the points go up, the steals go up, the boards, the assists, everything all comes up together as that 26 minutes becomes 29 or 30 or whatever it happens to be. Because they are a team that when he's clicking, he can be a part of what they're trying to do. But right now, I mean, he's shooting blindfolded. But that's why you're hanging on a little bit longer. I know it's the hardest hold in all of fantasy sports, but I feel pretty strongly we need to do it. We need to give him at least another couple weeks to see what his role is when he's actually shooting the ball like a normal person. Let's keep moving. Utah, they were competitive for some stretch of this ball game. Indiana kind of pulled away late, and that's why you got kind of normal minutes for the regulars on both sides. Not all the way there, but most of the way. So, like, Larry Markkinen still got his 35 minutes. Jordan Clarkson played 34. He finally woke up, but who cares? Like I've said it 1,000 times. Even with this big ball game, Clarkson still isn't even inside the top 200 in 9 category leagues. He's just not a category league player. And in the most marvelous news of the day, Taylor Horton-Tucker is finally out of the starting lineup. He of low percentages and high turnovers and a couple of assists and steals, and we officially don't have to worry about this nonsense anymore because Keyonte George is now the starting point guard for the Utah Jazz. He had 7 points, 9 assists, only 1 turnover. Yay, somebody to feed the ball to the other guys. And that may be his job here on this club. But frankly, I'm interested in seeing how it goes. That's not to say that he has necessarily this, world beater of a fantasy game. But if he's going to play 27 to 30 minutes at night, he'll get you 6 probably assists in that range. Shoots the 3 ball a little bit, not very much. The thing is, he's just not going to shoot very much in general. And what we don't really know is what is a lot of playing time going to do for his defensive stats? Because he only has 3 steals on the year to this point. Now, admittedly, he hasn't played a ton of minutes in most of those ball games, but even in the ones where he got more playing time, he only has 1? He didn't get any yesterday. So I don't know that the ceiling is all that high for Keyonte George. I think you could pick him up. Roto, you'd stick him on your bench. If you want to pick him up on the head-to-head side, you're basically just gunning for assists at that point, which, again, that's fine, but I don't know that it's going to be a big-time difference maker. The difference maker here is that you don't have to worry about Taylor Horton-Tucker anymore, which I've been trying to say for a week, but now it's very official. Also, John Collins slid up to play center with Walker Kessler out for a couple of weeks. That's sort of interesting news that broke in the afternoon yesterday. I forgot that we talked about that on the Secret Show with Brew, not on Fantasy NBA Today. By the way, I'll give you a little more info on the Secret Show in a second. Walker Kessler is out at least 2 weeks with an elbow sprain that he's been trying to play through since opening night, which is a really good piece of news if you have faith in Walker Kessler, to basically say, this guy's not right. He's not playing right. He's not healthy. That explains a lot of what we saw going on with him. John Collins had some foul issues in the first half. That's why the minutes were at 28 and not in the low 30s. It's also worth pointing out, Kelly Olynyk, 5 fouls in 21 minutes. He is likely going to be a useful fill-in while Kessler is out. We didn't get a chance to see it in this ball game because of the foul stuff, but I'm good with a Kelly Olynyk injury stream board spot, meaning a sort of a 1-burger play if we're going to rank it in 1, 2, and 3 burgers. Ochai Agbaji also got into the starting lineup yesterday, but I don't know that there's enough, as Brew likes to say, meat on the bone there. Meanwhile, Indiana is putting up some really insane offensive numbers, and it's super fun. And the Pacers' season win total over was one of my biggest plays of the year, so seeing them rattle off a couple of victories is always nice. Beating up on a bad team, that doesn't mean a whole lot. But they're 5-3 now. Pacers have looked a lot better after kind of a clunky first couple of games of the year. Unfortunately, the thing that's making them look better is Rick Carlisle doing his usual tinkering. So in this one, Aaron Nesmith got hot, so he stuck around for 30 minutes off the bench. Jalen Smith, who's been really good in limited playing time off the bench, was quite good again. But the problem for him is that he's averaging 18 minutes a night right now. Believe it or not, he's a top 90 fantasy play in 18 minutes a night, but there's just no guarantee that he's going to get more than that. This is why we were all so high. Remember, he was on the old man squad last year, and he just couldn't carve out any playing time. He's shooting 72%. That's definitely not going to stick. But damn, if he's not giving them some really good bench minutes, I just wish I had any faith at all that they were going to stick because, again, he saw 25 minutes yesterday. It could be 12 the day before that, 16, 20, 19, 15, 22. It's going to bounce all over the place depending on who's warm. And in this one, the bench unit for the Pacers was actually really, really good. Also, Benedict Mathurin had a better ball game, so he played a team-high 38 minutes. He'll get picked up everywhere, and then he'll get dropped for the next one because typically doesn't do much besides score. He did a couple things besides scoring in this one. Guys, I must remind you, Mathurin is ranked 213, and it's not a fluke that he's down there. So, unfortunately, we're going to keep looking at the Pacers and saying, all right, Bruce Brown, tough hold. Buddy Hield, tough hold. Miles Turner, kind of a slow start to the year, but he'll be fine. The minutes have been a little cockeyed. He's playing 26 minutes a night, and he's up to number 34 in 9-cat, so there's really not a whole lot to worry about there. Halliburton is number 9, and he's only playing 32 minutes, so that's even a number that could get a little bit higher. And then, Nesmith, Jalen Smith, Obi Toppin, all these guys were just like, okay, if one of these guys could just carve out a consistent 28, 29 minutes, the world is their oyster, but it just ain't going to happen. If it does, we're going to pounce on it, though. Be ready. Spurs got spanked at the Garden. Zach Collins was basically the lone bright spot. I guess you could say Jeremy Sohan was okay. Zach Collins sitting right at the 100 mark in 9-cat, but that's largely because he's at 2.8 turnovers per game, which is a number I think we have to believe is going to come down. In 8-cat, he's number 72 for whatever that's worth. And I think that's probably more where you should be valuing him because we know the turnovers are not going to stay at 3 per ball game, although he is doing some orchestrating. Just something to keep an eye on. Wembanyama got taken apart. Knicks defensively, you knew they were going to be focused on him. That knocked him back down to number 44 in 9-cat, but obviously he'll be fine. Knicks side, this ball game was pretty well in hand, but a few of the starters played bigger minutes. Not Tibbs minutes. That's how you know. Like, you look at Jalen Brunson at 32, RJ Barrett 32, Julius Randle 31, and you're like, oh, that's starters minutes. That's not Tibbs starters minutes. Tibbs starters minutes is 35, 36. So this game was technically, air quotes, over early. And the reason I bring that up is because Josh Hart only played 24 minutes off the bench. And if that goes back to that again with RJ Barrett healthy, that's not going to be enough. I need 30 out of Hart. That's what we've been talking about. We used to call it the Marvin Thad line. Marvin Williams and Thaddeus Young in 30 minutes could always put up fantasy value. And then I had to change the name because Thaddeus Young turned into a per-minute monster when he went to Chicago. So it's really the Marvin Williams line. Josh Hart is a member of the Marvin Williams Club. You need 30 minutes, but if you get it, guaranteed fantasy value. Nothing can derail it because he does things that don't require the ball in his hands. Clippers, it's going to be a bumpy ride, man. It's going to be a bumpy ride. The Clippers are 3-4. They've lost both games with James Harden after winning 3 out of 5 without him. Paul George, he was sort of the big usage guy in this one, took 20 shots, didn't make that many of them. Norman Powell was decent off the bench, but I don't think you can expect that. You're looking at the main guys. And so there's two things that we need to talk about with the Clips. Thing number one is it going to get better? Yes, obviously it's going to get better. Learning how to play with James Harden is going to be very difficult for a team that's built on wings. Harden's done the 5-out offense. So, they'll figure out a way to do it, but he was the guy with the ball every time. James is going to have to figure out how to play off ball a little bit better. He's going to have to buy in a way that he never really has before. And okay, so that's thing one. Yes, it's going to get better. And so thing one suggests that James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, these guys are all going to hit into a buy low posture. If it isn't already there, it will be certainly over the next week or two. I think it gets better after about a month. And maybe you'll even see incremental gains between now and then, but I wouldn't expect a big leap forward. I wouldn't expect the obvious gain and kind of look back in early December and say, okay, now I get it. They're starting to, they've begun to figure things out. However, while that is true, while it is a buy low for, I think, most of these guys, I also don't know that this is going to be a match made in heaven. And everybody is saying that, and everybody might just be right. This team brought in Russell Westbrook to be the point guard, to get the ball to Kawhi and Paul George, and he beats Zubats in the right spots, whatever those may be. Now they've brought in a guy that is both point guard and looks to take kind of inefficient shots sometimes because he's not going to get as many free throws as younger James Harden did. James Harden is still a good basketball player. So I want to qualify the following statement with that. I just still don't really see how this fit works. I don't know. There's just, you need to, maybe if there was a big man that was a bigger part of things, or if Kawhi and PG weren't the more efficient or better offensive options, I don't see how this turns into something magical, though I do see that it will get better than this. So those are the whole, can we hold two thoughts in our head at the same time thing. Ben Simmons got the ball game off. I think he was resting his back, if I'm remembering right. Maybe he had a little bit of soreness. Anyway, Royce O'Neal filled in. He's a great fill-in for Simmons. Dorian Finney-Smith filled in for Nick Claxton. He's been a great fill-in there. Cam Thomas hurt his ankle in this one, left in the third quarter. Basketball Monster, you can see on the screen here, they've got his estimated missed time at about a week. We'll see how that goes. It should give us time to figure out if it's going to be Lonnie Walker time or Dennis Smith Jr. time, or some combination that basically creates neither, because Lonnie had 21 points on 16 shots here. That was, a lot for a little. Dennis Smith Jr., 25 minutes. He does more of the whole assists and steals thing. Does anybody get over the cut line? I'm not making a move now. I'll make a move after I see what happens in their next ball game. Plus, if Ben Simmons is back, you got to figure that they'll want more spacing. So I guess you'd lean Lonnie Walker in that instance. Zombie Pelicans went into Minnesota and got spanked, which I think you could probably figure because, Pels were missing most of their starting lineup. No Herb Jones, no Zion Williamson, and no Zion was out for the birth of his child. So congrats to Zion. And no CJ McCollum was dealing with the small pneumothorax, which is a slight lung deflating due to air in the chest cavity pressing against it, creating a pressure difference. What did we get here? Well, everybody was ready to anoint Jordan Hawkins the next big thing. As you guys may recall, if you listen to this podcast, I was sort of tempered a bit to say, look, I don't know what's going to happen in the next one because I don't know that he's going to stay this hot. I do think Hawkins belongs on rosters while McCollum is out, but we're going to have to feel this out a little bit. The other note there is that Dyson Daniels, and I think that was probably more the Herb Jones absence than the Zion absence. But if that happens again, Daniels is worth a look as more of your defensive specialist ball distributing type. But mostly this was just ugly. They got beat up by a Wolves team that is, I feel so smart right now. I know we're only 7 games into the season and the whole thing could come apart because the Wolves are 5-0 at home and 0-2 on the road. But they're good. I thought they'd be pretty good this year, and so far they are. Mike Conley, another quietly solid ball game with low usage, just steering the ship. He's number 54 in 9-cat because Conley is averaging over 4 assists per ball game, and I think he's turned the ball over 1 time all year. That's exactly what they need out of their point guard because the team turned the ball over 16 times yesterday, but their point guard didn't do it. That's huge, man. I know he's not racking up assists. 4.5 is not that many. But to do it while basically never turning the ball over, there is a value in that. This is partly why I like playing 9-cat, because someone doing what Conley's doing should be rewarded. He's been incredibly efficient so far. He's shooting around 50% from the field, which frankly, that probably comes down. And again, has not turned the ball over almost at all. 1 turnover in 7 games. That's amazing. Kyle Anderson, it's looking more and more like he's going to be probably streamer level. He's at 137 in 9-cat right now. He's getting his steal and he's getting his block. And his field goal percent is decent, but he's just not out there quite enough. So that's why I'm leaning that way. Naz Reid, a little quieter in this one, but he's been above the cut line, so go ahead and roll with him there. Jaden McDaniels, you guys know I love him as a player. I think he's destined for the Shane Battier Award of being way better in real life than they are in fantasy. Lakers, down most of the players that they actually want to use in a given ball game. Rui Hachimura came back, but no Anthony Davis, no Jared Vanderbilt, no Gabe Vincent, no Jackson Hayes, no, who am I forgetting? There's someone else I'm forgetting there. So they're just getting ripped apart. And with no Anthony Davis, the last line of defense, Christian Wood didn't work. He had a horrible game filling in for AD. D'Lo and Hachimura were kind of the only players that survived this one, but they just got destroyed by a Rockets team that's now blown out 3 straight opponents. And Houston's 4-3. Somebody, I think, told me it's the first time the Rockets have been over 500 in 4 years or something. That's kind of insane. All right, well, I don't think we can read too much into this ball game. You can keep one eye on Hachimura, but a lot of his value is tied to the fact that there was no Anthony Davis, and Lakers went small ball Hachimura at the 5, but then they couldn't stop anybody. So the Rockets shot 55%. Everybody that was able to play 20 some odd minutes basically put up numbers. The thing I do want to focus on the Rockets side is Tari Eason, who we knew was making his return yesterday. 14 minutes, 9 points, 9 rebounds, a block, a couple of assists, and a 3-pointer. Houston's bench is thin. They've gotten a lot better as a team this year because they've dramatically improved the starting 5 with Freddie VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, and then the general improvement of Jabari Smith Jr. and Alperen Şengün. And then Jalen Green had a heater in yesterday's ball game. But there aren't that many guys playing behind him. They got Jeff Green, who's ancient, put up 9 points and 6 boards in 11 minutes. That's how bad the Lakers were yesterday. We even got a Boban sighting. The bench is not good for Houston, and they just don't want to use them very much unless they have to. But Tari Eason feels like the kind of guy that as he gets revved up, he should see 25 bench minutes, I would think. So if you want to stash him, I'm good with that. I think he has a better fantasy ceiling than Keyonte George while we're talking about sort of the who to stash stuff from yesterday's ball games. And that was my takeaway from the Rockets, is that Eason looked really good. Before we get to Detroit, Milwaukee, I want to remind everybody once again to come find me on social media. I am at Dan Besbris over there. And please take a moment. It takes you 10 seconds less to go hit like and subscribe on whatever service you're using to take in these shows, whether it's over on YouTube, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, whatever. It's so quick, so painless, so quick, easy, and painless. Why not do it? Also, wanted to tell everybody that we do have a new partner, and those that are listening are probably hearing this stuff. That's our buddies over at uncommongoods.com. Really a cool place to check out as we get into the holiday season. They've got these sort of weird, fun, cute things that you can get for people for the holidays where they just like things they wouldn't have or think about having. So that's kind of a fun little partner we've got. Also, of course, Ethos20 is the code over at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping on your order at manscaped.com. Go check them out now. You can get the Handyman. That's the traditional face razor, or the brand new futuristic Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Pew, 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 pew. Ultra Lawnmower 5.0. That's Ethos20 for 20% off and free shipping over at manscaped.com. There's a question from the chat room asking, what is it? What is this burger thing you keep referencing? Yeah, so it's just a really fast way that I refer to injury replacements. I don't remember how it happened. I think I was just floating through emojis on Twitter last year when I was making a list of players filling in for injured guys. So Dorian Finney-Smith would be an example right now, who didn't have fantasy value when Nick Claxton was healthy, but Claxton went down, and now Finney-Smith is playable nightly in Roto, head-to-head, whatever. And one day I think I just said, all right, like I'm going to give players that I think are a decent fill-in 1 burger, players that are very good fill-in 2 burgers, and like world beater fill-ins get 3 burgers. And then it just became the burger board. But it's effectively the injury replacement streamer board. And it's just much faster to say burger. Detroit, Marcus Sasser is on a serious heater right now. He has pushed his season-long value all the way up to number 103 in 20 minutes per ball game, but he's also shooting almost 60% from the field and hitting 2 3-pointers a night. We just know from watching the NBA for even a few weeks in our lives that that's not a number that's going to stay. So as fun as he's been and as streamable as he seems to be, as long as Alec Burks and Jaden Ivey are out, we know this is going to come to an end at some point. So just be ready when that happens. Jalen Duren got himself into and out of and then back into foul trouble in this game. He still managed 11, 12, and 5, but no defensive stats. Presumably, he'll be better in the next ball game. This is why when he was a first rounder, I said, go ahead and see if you can get like a top 40 guy for him right now, because he's now outside the top 40. I still think Duren has a chance to be a top 60 fantasy play this year. I don't know how much higher I see him going than that. I do think he has a chance to be involved in the sort of rebounding top of the board battle, but he's got this ankle soreness stuff, and then foul trouble is going to creep in every once in a while. So just like, it's again, hold 2 thoughts in your head. You can both love Jalen Duren, as we do, and I still think I was the first person to say pick him up last year, which is weird for me because he's young. But I was just watching a Pistons game and people were exploding off of him like they weighed 85 pounds less. And I know that's not the case, but he's just the strongest dude ever. But to hold 2 thoughts in your head, you can both love him and also understand that he wasn't going to be a top 25 guy. So see what you can squeeze out of it. Good ball game for Cade Cunningham. I know the turnovers have been a pain. He's at 5.5 still, and he had 5 more in this one, but you take 33, 8, and 8, even if there were no defensive stats, which I think is something that probably comes around for him. And then Asar Thompson is someone that we're like, it's hard to not be super excited about him. But at the same time, we also probably need to understand that the 3+ defensive stats per game was always probably going to come down a little bit. But he's just doing so many things, man. 15 rebounds in yesterday's game. With Duren back, Isaiah Stewart back to a drop. Brook Lopez had 4 fouls in the first 9 minutes of this ball game, and then he didn't pick up one the rest of the way, and so he ended up with 14.6 boards, 4 3-pointers, and 4 blocks. I don't know how we got there, but we did. He's right at his ADP right now. And it feels like it's been an atrocious start to the year, which gives me a lot of confidence that Brook Lopez is probably on his way up. Giannis got ejected. It was kind of dumb. There have been some weird ejections lately in the NBA. Officials got to take it easy a little. But it allowed Dame to go maximum Dame. That's it. Max Strus. We've been waiting for him to sort of start to get the field goal percent around. This was a better shooting game. He didn't take as many shots as I would have liked, but I'll take that better percentage. He's up to number 82 in 9-cat again, 2.5 weeks into this thing. So still a small sample size, but not nothing. The nice thing about Strus that I never saw coming into this year was the rebounding. It's been pretty consistently good. I didn't know he could rebound. Sorry, Max. Anyway, he belongs on rosters. Karis LeVert, 29, 5, and 5. I've been talking a lot about LeVert on this show, and you guys know for many years I've been staunchly opposed to him, but this season you've heard me soften my stance on LeVert. And a lot of that is because it does look like he's embraced his role on this Cavs team. He's at 18 points, 4.5 boards, 4.5 assists, and a steal with a couple of threes off the bench. Typically, I know we had Garland missing a few games in there, but it just does kind of feel like he's a guy that they're giving a lot of opportunity to. And so certainly in head-to-head, I think you need to have LeVert on your team. Roto, I'm a little more, let's say, afraid that he's going to go out there and have one of those games. Like yesterday, he managed to shoot 50% from the field and over 80% at the free throw line. But if he's taking 14 shots and 16 free throws, I'm going to need a mouth guard to prevent me grinding my teeth into nothing. 16 free throws. I'm very worried he's going to go 10 for 16. But I do think he belongs on head-to-head rosters at the very least. Jared Allen slowly still kind of working his way up to that full tilt. And the Thunder are also a team that kind of spreads you out. So they went to more Evan Mobley at the 5. Not a huge surprise there. For the Thunder, no real notes. I know Lou Dort has been better than usual this year, but we've watched enough Lou Dort to know that this is not a thing that's going to stick. 2.2 defensive stats and 53% from the field. This is, much like the Dylan Brooks start to the year, a robust sell-high opportunity. Tyler Herro, nasty ankle sprain in this Miami game. He's expected to miss a couple of weeks. Kyle Lowry stepped into a much larger offensive role yesterday. I don't know how much of his body can take of that. Duncan Robinson also got more playing time. So it wasn't necessarily that Lowry played more, because he's been getting around 30 minutes a game as the starter. It was just that he was forced to do more. Duncan Robinson did play more. He didn't do more. So I don't know. I mean, you could probably make a case to pick up Kyle Lowry here and just see if this is like the time that he's going to have to go be involved. He's averaging 7 points a game, but he is a top 100 play because of 1.5 steals and basically 2 3-pointers and 5 assists. That's gotten him into that mix. Duncan Robinson, I think you could probably still consider him more of a 3-point streamer. So go ahead and add Kyle Lowry. Just sort of see how this goes. Because if Herro really does miss 3 weeks, and Lowry is the guy that's like, all right, I guess I got to take a few more shots today, that would be worthwhile. That would bump up the scoring, the threes, all that stuff, and that's good for him. Meanwhile, you guys know where I stand on Bismack Biyombo. Everything goes fine for a game or two, and then the wheels come off. It's the same story every year, and I don't expect it to change as he gets into his, mid-30s now. I would rather take a shot on Luke Kennard or Santi Aldama on that Memphis side. I don't know that we can trust Aldama to play enough, but his fantasy game is pretty good. Kennard is just your run-of-the-mill, amazing 3-point shooter, and his minutes still kind of trending up. I don't know if we're going to get all the way there, but the worse that Zaire Williams looks and the better Kennard looks, the more you're probably going to see him. And he just makes everybody else so much harder to guard because Luke can stand way the hell out there and kind of turn it into more of like a 4-on-4 if Memphis wants. Don't clog things up. All right, you got your outlet. Amazing shooter if you throw it to Kennard 28 feet away. Is he going to do enough from a fantasy standpoint? That's another sort of secondary question. If he plays 30 minutes, I would probably do it because you're looking at 3 to 4 3-pointers, and that by itself is often enough to get it done on good percentages. I don't think you need to pick him up yet, but don't write it off. Phoenix over Chicago in overtime. Grayson Allen went nuts, but yeah, I mean, you're not going to worry about that. Bradley Beal, season debut, looked, as you'd expect, kind of rusty, but he'll be fine once he gets up to, 28, 29 minutes. He'll probably max out in the low 30s this year. That's fine. Good news there. You can probably fire him up for their next ball game if you really wanted. Chicago side, I just keep hoping and praying that Alex Caruso can find his way into high 20s in minutes. And he got it here in overtime because he was far and away the Bulls' best player yesterday, but it's just not enough nightly. I want it to be so badly. And he's number 88 in 9-cat right now, but it's not good to evaluate someone right off of one of their gigantic games because they're obviously going to be better, and then he'll go back to having a quieter game, and he'll fall back into that 120, 130 range because right now it's mostly because of defensive stats and his field goal percent. 1.6 steals, 0.8 blocks, almost 60% from the field. He's doing very little else on the basketball court from a fantasy standpoint. But damn, if we could just get him like 26 minutes a night, I'd call him a premier pickup in that spot. Well. Gary Trent was a little bit better for Toronto, but he did nothing besides hit 4 3-pointers. So I'm still mostly on the outs with him. Jakob Poeltl, Dallas is going to do this to teams where they're going to run traditional big men right off the floor. So Toronto went small. It worked because they have all these very rangy wings they can throw out there like Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. Those guys can handle the tough defensive assignments. They just want to make sure that whoever's playing center can switch out onto the perimeter, and that's what they did, and they won. Poeltl was a 0 plus minus, and then the rest of the starters were all more like a +7 or +9. That's basically where the game was right there. Dallas side, Tim Hardaway hit 5 3-pointers. He's somehow managed to continue his very 3-point heavy start to the year. He's ranked number 92 on the shoulders of 4 3-pointers a game and almost nothing else. I have to believe at some point this cools because it hasn't yet. Is this the start of the Grant Williams cool off? He's number 113. All it took was one ball game where he wasn't hitting a bunch of threes to cool him off. So I think we're probably looking at streamer level for Grant. He's a roto tease, but I think I'd settle back on streamer. And then no Derek Lively. He was out with an illness, and the hope was that maybe Dwight Powell or Maxi Kleber could step up, but no, not really. The Warriors. Another day, another Andrew Wiggins clunker. He's really bad. I think there may be something wrong. I don't know what it is. I couldn't possibly tell you. I don't know if he's hurt, if he's mentally hurt, but I think I'd just stay away at this point. Chris Paul, 27 minutes. A little bit upsetting, given no Draymond Green. You kind of hoped he would play more. Warriors really did keep their minutes in check for the main guys in this ball game. Steph played 34. Clay played 32. Nobody else got over 30. It's kind of surprising. Kevon Looney, typically decent when there's no Draymond. So that's another thing you got. Again, I thought we'd get more out of Chris Paul, at least more assists. But we'll just keep rolling with it. That's generally your Warriors side. For the Nuggets, we were waiting to see if Reggie Jackson could carve out a role here to replace Jamal Murray, and this was a much better ball game. Reggie, 20 points, 6 assists. He looked good, and that's the reason that we even considered it, is that, sometimes Nikola Jokic just turns guys into better fantasy assets like he's done with basically everybody else that exists on this team. And so maybe you consider it with Reggie. I don't know that he gets there for 9-cat roto. I think head-to-head, he makes more sense because you just sort of pile up whatever stats he brings you. But we're looking at a month out for Murray. So if Reggie Jackson can get himself inside the top 100 for a full month, that would be worthwhile. And then finally, Portland, Sacramento in overtime. Malcolm Brogdon pulled a hammy, just a matter of time with him. Kind of hoped it would be longer than this. And Skylar Mays played 37 minutes, 18 points, 11 assists. Call him a speculative ad. He'll probably play the point guard spot, but he doesn't hit many 3-pointers, and he typically doesn't shoot 53% from the field either. I think you're basically looking for a smattering of points, mostly targeting assists with Skylar Mays, and that's fine because assists are hard to find, but just don't expect too much out of him because his fantasy game is not that well-rounded, but very much a guy that you could add and kind of see how it goes. And then over on the Kings side, Malik Monk had a weird free throw shooting game, but otherwise he, again, is the fill-in guy for De'Aaron Fox. He had 23 points, 10 assists. Just keep rolling with Monk until Fox shows his face once again. Keegan Murray, getting a lot of Keegan Murray questions. He just can't shoot right now. And that's the perfect time to buy low on a dude because he's number 127 almost exclusively because he's been a high-volume 34% shooter from the field. That's a number you know is coming up into the mid-40s. And when it does, Keegan's a top 80 guy. So see if you can get him for someone in the 90s or 100s. It's worth it. I'm trying to look at the board right now, see what I can find in that range. PJ Washington, absolutely, I'd give him up for Keegan. Sadiq Bey, that probably doesn't get it done. Keldon Johnson might get it done if people aren't aware that his percentages are going to fall off a cliff. I'd rather have Keegan Murray there. Let's see. What do we got in that range? I think Jalen Suggs. If Jonas Valanciunas has a giant ball game at some point here, that's a great one to sell for Keegan Murray. By the way, you can also buy on Jaylen Brown. Forgot to mention that on the Celtics. He's shooting 44% from the field and 71 at the free throw line, and the steals are kind of low. When that all comes back around, he'll jump back up towards that top 50 range where he is every year. And it's funny, for the YouTubers, you guys always get to see this big board behind me, and I'll take the box score window down for a second. Jaylen Brown, he's off the side of the screen on this side of me, my right side. Last pick of the 4th round. This was the 2020-2021 season, the draft that happened in December. Drafted in the same spot. Dude hasn't moved in half a decade in fantasy drafts. I love this crap. All right, let's take a quick look at tonight. Thursday, just a 2-gamer. There's really not a whole lot going on there that we need to talk about. Milwaukee is at Indiana. You heard my thoughts on Indiana. If in some magical, twisted universe, Rick Carlisle's just like, you know what? For a month, I'm just going to play my starter minutes. Well, we'd probably have 2 more pickups on that team, whoever they might be. But it isn't that. It's just not going to happen. So, Atlanta, it's really nothing. Like, the only question I have with Atlanta is, can Sadiq Bey stay inside the top 100 if he keeps bouncing into and out of the starting lineup? So far, he's barely hanging on the shoulders of 48% shooting and 2 3-pointers. Being a decent field goal percent guy while also getting teams 3-pointers is a win. But are his steals on the way down after he had that 5-steal opener? I think he's had like 1 steal since then, maybe 2. Free throws are at 91%. That's probably not a number that sticks either. I'm still holding on Bey, but I'm also predicting he falls outside of the top 100 because Jalen Johnson is just too damn good. And every time the Hawks play somebody with a scoring wing on the other side, Jalen gets to start, which feels like it might be the case again tonight if they want Johnson to go deal with Paolo Banchero. We'll see. Orlando, team with very good streaming schedule this week. We'll wait on Markelle Fultz's status. We know that Wendell Carter Jr. is out, so you're watching to see if Mo Wagner or Goga Batadze can actually get any kind of stranglehold on that center minutes. Probably not, is the answer, by the way. Gary Harris, I'm assuming, is still out because he's super old, but, we'll get more information on those guys in the afternoon. If those guys are all out, Cole Anthony should remain decent. I'm still I can't figure out for the life of me why I have this weird Jalen Suggs crush going this year, but I do. He's not at all the kind of fantasy player that I'm usually into because his percentages, the free throws actually been okay so far, but the field goal percent has been bad, 36%. But he gets steals, he gets blocks, he gets boards, he gets assists. I think it's just the eye test thing, man. I've watched a few Magic games, and he looks really, really good. Suggs looks good. I know he's not knocking the shots down, but the Magic are 4-3, and he's been a nice part of that. And on top of everything else, he's only playing 25.5 minutes a game right now, and he's right at the edge of the top 100. If he somehow can get the shot going, even into the low 40s, give me 42% instead of 36, does that buy him more minutes on the court? And does more minutes mean more stuff? He just has this nice fantasy outline. Like right now, he's 1 3-pointer, 1.7 steals, 0.7 blocks, over 5 rebounds, over 3 assists from a guard spot, the rebounds. But he can't shoot to save his life. If that number comes around a little, he can rocket boost up the board. And I think that's why I'm into Suggs, even though I just know it hasn't been there and hasn't been there like in his career so far. But I got to think he's a better shooter than he's been so far this season. Anywho, let's pivot over to the chat room while I remind everybody to come find me on social at Dan Besbris and like and rate and subscribe. Surely you've subscribed to the YouTube page. Surely you've subscribed to iTunes and Spotify so that we can keep growing. Let's do some questions. What range players do you think I'll need to offer to pry Kawhi Leonard or Paul George off of other players in 9-cat roto? That's a really good question because I think you're about to embark upon a buy low on these guys. What I don't know is how other teams value them right now because Kawhi is a third rounder to this point on the year because he's shooting 70% at the free throw line and nobody really knows why. Paul George is still a first rounder despite a couple of quieter ball games, and so that might make it a little tougher to get yourself some PG. But Kawhi, I've got to think you should be able to get him with someone in the 40 range because people are afraid of what they've seen. Also, you might get a better price if you just keep waiting because I don't think this Harden thing is going to fix itself in the next game or two. I think it's going to take weeks. So again, that's all the thing with it's like a stock market. Do we roll the dice and see if the price continues to go down and maybe buy at a better opportunity, or do we try to do it now? I think Paul George is still going to take a guy that's like probably pretty close to where he got drafted. So I don't know that we're there yet. Harden, same story, that it isn't really a buy low yet on him fully. But I think Kawhi, you can probably get for someone in the 35-40 range. And if you give it another week, maybe you can get everybody else for 5-10 slots deeper. Streamer spot in my points league. Should I choose Hawkins, Mo Wagner, or Jalen Smith? I think I'd probably go Jalen Smith, amazingly. Well, maybe Hawkins. Go Hawkins. Points league, go Hawkins. What do you think of the Pacers, Nesmith, and Jalen Smith? Dealing with Kessler, Simons, Herro, and Claxton hurt. Well, again, we've talked about the Pacers 1,000 times. These guys come and go on Carlisle's whims. If they're having a good ball game, great. Jalen Smith shooting 72%. That's coming down. Nesmith, he gets hot, and then he gets in there. You just never know what day it's going to happen. Is Keegan and Clay even worth starting in Roto right now? Clay's been meh. Keegan's been terrible. If you want to bench Keegan until the shot starts to fall, I'm okay with that. It does still feel like he's doing kind of enough to cover up the bad shot, and you sort of don't want to miss it when the heater starts. And then I think I'd probably argue something similar with Clay, although for him, there's been a lack of usage that's been a little upsetting on the Thompson front. I'm more worried about Klay Thompson than I am about Keegan Murray. Dan, who's the preferred drop in this Roto League 12-teamer? Wiggins, Josh Hart, Kyle Anderson. Probably dropping slow-mo. God, Wiggins. Yuck. It's probably Kyle Anderson. But it might be Josh Hart. It's not Wiggins because I think there's something wrong, which makes me think either they fix it or they reveal it or they shut him down or something because he can't possibly be healthy. Should I drop Brogdon for Keyonte George? My injured slots are already full. You might have to if your injured slots are full, so go ahead. Would you drop Hart to stash Olynyk or Keyonte George? No, I think I'd keep Hart for now. Give him another game. I traded Gordon Hayward for Ben Simmons. Is this a good trade? Both are injury prone. Bridges returning soon in Charlotte. I needed another point guard. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Although Gordon Hayward does look more spry this year, for whatever that's worth. Skylar Mays or Malik Monk worth starting in Roto? Who to pick up by dropping Strus? I don't know why you need to drop Strus. He's in the 85 range this year, and he's had 2 decent ball games in a row. I am probably starting Monk in Roto and hoping that you don't get the weird free throw stuff, at least until De'Aaron Fox is back. I don't know that I'm starting Skylar Mays. I'm a little worried about what his sort of lack of other stuff. Well, maybe you could start them both. I mean, they just don't really have any point guards left right now. So even if he's bad, 30 minutes of bad point guard is probably worth it. So let's go yes. And also, I'm not dropping Strus. What do you think of Derek Lively and Lou Dort in a 10-teamer? If you had to choose, which one would you keep? Probably Derek Lively. What Dort is doing right now is way out over his skis. His fantasy game has never looked like this before. I can't imagine it sticks. Although, admittedly, he's been good to this point. Cam Johnson's durability is a big issue. Yes. But I don't know what that's in reference to. Conley is barely top 100 when you punt turnovers. Yeah, that's true, but I don't punt them. I also, or maybe I do in head-to-head, but at the same time, I don't. And Josh and I actually had a show where we talked about this before the season. Punting is not about trying to lose a category. It's about not paying super close attention to it. But if you win it by accident half the time, that's a lot of extra wins over an 18-week regular season. 9 extra wins, that might decide your league. So having someone like a Mike Conley, I think there's the built-in value there. If you're punting turnovers, doesn't mean you have to lose them. It means you don't pay close attention to them. But that also means that having a guy like Conley who's helping in a few things, while very much not hurting you in another, that's a good thing. Should I trade Josh Giddey and Spencer Dinwiddie for Freddie VanVleet? Absolutely yes. Nope, that's not. See, I traded Jordan Hawkins and Jalen Suggs and PJ Washington for Karl Anthony Towns. A 3-for-1? Yeah, you won that one by a lot. Who the hell would do a 1-for-3? That team must be awful. What's your thought on Scoot? Same thing as I've said the last 5 straight shows. He's going to be probably pretty good in February. Do with that what you will. That's why I tell you guys don't draft ball handling point guards, rookies. Don't draft ball handling rookie point guards. Timetable for my hero's return. I know what you're going through here. My hero, there goes my hero. Basketball Monster thinks about 3 weeks. We'll wait and see. Gonna have to read the tea leaves a little bit. Naz Reid or Dorian Finney-Smith? Well, Naz feels like a rest of season guy. Dorian is a Claxton fill-in, so I'll go Naz on that one. Is Keldon Johnson a sell high? Yes, he is. Because it feels like he's been amazing, and he's just barely inside the top 100 because he can't shoot. At least not consistently. 46 from the field is probably going down. 70 at the free throw line. He hurts you in as many places as he helps you. So, yes. Thoughts on Cam Johnson? Is he a must roster? Yes. I know his durability is funky, but he's probably going to be a top 60 guy when he's rolling starters minutes, and that's a pretty damn valuable dude. Dyson Daniels, Cason Wallace, Kyle Anderson, or Luke Kennard for a Friday-Sunday stream. All are on my waiver wire. Yeesh. Well, I don't know who's going to be in and out for the Pelicans, so hard for me to say Daniels. Slow-mo and Kennard are more your guaranteed minutes guys. Let's go slow-mo. Jalen Johnson versus Asar Thompson. Who do you prefer rest of season? Oh, I love them both, man. That's not fair. Let me go Thompson. I still think we haven't seen a Johnson cool down, and I do believe that one will come at some point. Miles Turner and Gordon Hayward for Anthony Edwards, or is that an overpay? Yeah, I would do it. I don't think it's enough, actually. Somebody probably drafted Ant at 14, so they're not going to give him up for. I know Hayward's been sort of on a heater, but Miles Turner has not. You're selling on Miles Turner at the wrong time, is my advice in that one. I have Tyler Herro in my injured slot and looking to pick a player for today. Is it Aaron Nesmith or Cole Anthony? Give me Cole Anthony, although, again, I don't know what the false Gary Harris status update is. I don't think we've gotten one yet this morning. We'll probably get one by the afternoon. Leaning Cole Anthony here because we know the Pacers yank minutes around. Should I Kessler for Bam? I'm assuming That's a trade. Yeah, go get Adebayo if anybody would actually do that trade. What do you think about RJ Barrett? Is he a player in Roto? Nope. Hasn't been for I don't know how long. He's way out over his skis in shooting right now. Very much a sell high. RJ shooting 87% at the free throw line. I would invite all of you to look at his best free throw shooting seasons ever and compare it. Because it's not close, guys. It's not close. Last 5 seasons, this year, 87%. Prior to that, 74, 71, 75, 61. How about field goal? He's at 47 this year, career 42. His percentages will fall off a cliff because we know they will. Sell high on RJ Barrett. I didn't even realize he was as high as he was. What are your thoughts on Amen Thompson and Tari Eason? I think Eason's going to get pretty consistent playing time. I think they'll find ways to work Amen in there, but I don't know if it's going to be all the time. As the Rockets have veterans now. They'll go with the vets. Is Dort going to fall off? Yeah, I think probably. Brook Lopez for Cat. Is that a good buy low? I mean, yeah, but also Brook Lopez is ranked 77, so he's not a sell high. Usually you have to pair a sell high with the buy low. I don't know that you're going to... I don't think that the Cat person gives up Cat for Brook Lopez. Rank these three: Zach Collins, Jalen Duren, Walker Kessler. It's Duren, then Kessler, then Collins. Was France's field goal percent last year a fluke, or is this just a bad shooting start? No, I think his field goal percent probably comes up a little bit. I think his field goal attempts might come down a tad. So there'll be a little bit of a counterweight there. Franz is probably like, I think 80 range is probably about where he belongs, honestly. Should I trade Mitch Rob for Ben Simmons? No, I'd rather have Mitchell Robinson. Drop Kobe White for DeAnthony Melton? Sure, why not? Would you swap Paul George and Alperen Şengün for Booker and Beal or Turner? Yeah, PG and Şengün for Booker and Turner I would do. I don't know about Beal. I think Beal is the worst of the bunch in this group. Yeah, I think I like Booker and Turner if I'm picking a combo here. Thoughts on trading Valanciunas and Keegan or Dinwiddie for Tyler Herro in a points league? Yep, go for it. Any of those combos. If it gets you Tyler Herro, I'm doing it. Oh, we've seen that already. Thoughts on Draymond Green for Karis LeVert or for Anunoby? Anunoby's the best of the bunch, then Draymond, then LeVert is at the bottom. Josh Giddey, hold or trade? I don't know what you can get for him. He was on my bust list. Y'all didn't watch my bust show before the season. You're probably stuck with him. I don't know what you can get back. If you can get a top 100 player for Giddey back, I'd probably do it. Thoughts on John Morant when he comes back? Should I try to trade in case they decide to tank and shut him down? I'd be surprised if the Grizzlies wanted to tank. I think you should trade him right as he's coming back because everybody's going to be celebrating it, and you might be able to get like a top 40, top 50 guy for him at that point because you waited. But right now, I don't think I would trade. Cole Anthony or Buddy Hield today? Ugh, gross. I guess Hield. Is stashing Miles Bridges now a good move? So I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm actually just not doing Miles Bridges this year. I think the NBA almost went too light, and I know there's new stuff going on. I get it. Everybody deserves a second chance, but it doesn't mean I have to put them on my fantasy team. Now, if you don't care, then yes, this would be a good time to do it. I do, so I'm just not doing it. Pick one to drop. Brogdon, Scoot, or Dort? I don't know, man. I don't really know what your team can handle because 2 of those 3 guys are hurt. I don't think you can drop Dort. He's the only one of those 3 guys that's playing right now. Scoot will be good in February. Brogdon might be out for 3 weeks. I don't know, man. Brogdon? Mitchell Robinson for Tyler Herro. Let's go Herro. Keegan or Dinwiddie? Points league. Let's go Keegan. Would you trade Ozar for Mitch Robb? I think I'd rather have Thompson. Choose one to save your life. Marcus Sasser, Keyonte George, Jordan Hawkins. Does this mean that I'm like drowning and one of these three players has to, which of them throws me the life raft? No, I know what you mean. This is for just like getting into a ball game real quick. Probably go Hawkins of those three. I just think Marcus Sasser is about to cool down. I may be wrong there, though. If I want to target Miles Turner, should I try offering Jalen Brunson or Darius Garland? Which one is the better player to keep? Garland's off to a very bad turnover start to his year, so I don't know that he's going to be enough to get you Miles Turner right now. Brunson might. Both of those guys are like 45 range per game dudes when things settle, and Miles is probably a little higher than that. So I'm okay with offering either of them. I would probably rather have Jalen Brunson on my team over Darius Garland for whatever that's worth. But anyway, what's your take on the Wizards' messed rotation? So I talked about this right at the very beginning of the show. The Wizards were the first team we talked about. They went to hot hand yesterday, and they're so bad that they're going to need to do that from time to time. My expectation is that the minutes do settle a little bit for guys like Poole and Tyus Jones in particular. They've been kind of on the wrong end of the reserves are playing better than the starters. You're definitely holding both of them. I think Tyus Jones has a decent shot to get up into that 75-80 range where he was getting drafted. I don't think Jordan Poole gets up into the 40 range where he was getting drafted, but they'll certainly be better than they've been so far. So the answer to the next question is, are we holding Tyus Jones? The answer is yes. Are any of these guys keepers in a 10-teamer? Aaron Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Tyus Jones. Right now, all three are playable in a 10-teamer. I do think Aaron Gordon falls off. Tyus Jones is probably your first drop if you're trying to stream a spot. In a 10-team league, 12 teams, definitely they all belong on rosters. What do you think about DeMar for Brunson and Jalen Williams? Yeah. That's a rare time where I would do a 1-for-2 because I think Brunson and DeMar end up pretty close to each other in rank. And then so Jalen Williams is this sweetener that probably ends up inside the top 60 also. Absolutely. Should I trade Anthony Edwards for LaMelo Ball? Punt free throw. If you're punting free throw, probably not. If you're punting field goal, I'd say yes. I think there's a reasonable chance both these guys end up ranked in like the mid to high 20s on a per game basis. LaMelo's at 58 right now while shooting 39% from the field. He's most likely on his way up. Anthony Edwards is at 23. He's kind of maxing out right now because of his percentages. I don't think that there's a clear winner in this either way. Guy in my league traded Mikal Bridges and Ja for Tyrese Halliburton. I'm fine with that. What do you think Chris Paul's floor ceiling is in a points league? He was never a guy you probably should have been targeting in points leagues. He's going to always be better in category because of typically good percentages, steals, assists, things like that. But he's not going to score all that much. So points leagues, I honestly, I don't really know. Should I be worried about Kawhi with Harden in the picture? No. I think this is a buy low on Kawhi. Jeremy Grant or Yusuf Nurkic? Nurk is coming off a gigantic game, so this would be that moment to probably sell on him. So is Jeremy Grant, actually. Grant's off to a very poor start. I think the shutdown fear makes me lean Nurk at this point. But Grant could have a pretty good run here with everybody else hurt on the Blazers. Will Jonas Nader go crazy if I say Chet is better than JJJ? Probably. We'll have to pass that along to Jonas on Twitter. That's very funny. That's where we're going to pause it. Hour 10, I think, is probably enough here. Oh, you snuck in two questions at the end. Any other player you like on the level of Lauri Markkanen? Ooh, that's an open-ended question. Markkanen is number 16. I think he probably finishes somewhere inside the top 25-ish. So target someone who you think finishes near there. Şengün or Mark Williams rest of season. I think Şengün, Mark Will is likely to slow down on the field goal percent. That's same, I think, is what I would have felt at the start of the year, too. And who's a better pickup, Hachimura or Kyle Lowry? Let's go Kyle Lowry. Sorry, guys, we're done now. Cutting it off. Too much talking. I will likely be back tomorrow. I think this is going to be a one-show Thursday. Tomorrow we'll have our weekend review show. That's been a big hit so far. Please, if you want to help keep us grow, Find me on social at Dan Besbris. Like, rate, subscribe. Go check out our sponsors at Uncommon Goods and Manscaped. Kisses to all of you. We'll see y'all tomorrow.